Okay, so when a new drug is being tested, how do we really know if it's working? I mean, for some things it's pretty simple, right? But what about for our minds? Well, today we're going to meet the unseen experts who are absolutely crucial for developing the next generation of brain medicines. So let's dive right in.
I mean, think about it. How do you measure a feeling? It sounds like a philosophical question, but the answer is, well, it's incredibly complex. How do you put a number on something like depression? Or how do you quantify a change in someone's thinking? This is honestly one of the biggest hurdles in modern medicine, and it's the core problem we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, it really all boils down to this fundamental measurement challenge. I mean, you can't just put the human mind under a microscope, right? And that's what makes creating drugs for the brain so incredibly difficult.
And that's really the heart of the matter. You see, you can't just draw a vial of blood to check if an antidepressant is doing its job. Researchers are trying to measure these really subjective states. We're talking about mood, behavior, mental clarity. And that requires a completely different approach, a whole different playbook.
And this chart really lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got these objective measures, stuff that's easy to put a number on, like your blood pressure or your heart rate. But then you have the world of what they call CNS, or central nervous system trials. And here the challenge is massive. How do you reliably measure something like mood or cognition across thousands of different people?
So what's the solution? Well, it turns out the answer lies with a very specific, highly trained kind of expert. It's time to meet the person right at the heart of this entire challenge, the clinical rater. You can really think of them as the eyes and ears of one of these CNS clinical trials. They are these incredibly well-trained observers whose whole job is to translate complex, messy human experience into the clean, structured data that science needs. They're basically the human bridge between the patient's feeling and the hard data.
Okay, so what does a clinical rater actually do? Well, these are professionals who are trained to conduct these very specific, very standardized interviews with patients. Their entire job is to evaluate symptoms and track changes in a way that is perfectly consistent and repeatable every single time.
And believe me, the stakes here could not be higher. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, not to mention the potential for a new, life-changing medicine, all hinging on the quality of their work. Just think about it. If one rater scores a patient's depression just a little bit differently than another, the data for the entire trial could be thrown off. It's that serious.
So how on earth do you solve that problem of human variability? Well, here's the brilliant part. You don't try to eliminate the human element, you train it. Through these specialized, super-intensive programs, that subjective human judgment gets turned into reliable, rock-solid scientific data.
The goal here is absolute, total standardization. Every single question they ask, every observation they make, every score they give, it all has to follow a super strict protocol. It's almost like they're learning a new language of clinical assessment, and in this language, there is absolutely zero room for improvisation.
And you can see the goals here go way beyond just, learning the rules. This is all about building a deep, core competency that guarantees high-quality data, guarantees that the protocol is followed to the letter, and ultimately enhances the integrity of the whole trial.
So, what does this training actually look like in practice? Come on, let's go inside one of these specialized programs and see how an expert rater is made, right from the ground up.
It's a really structured path to becoming proficient. First, they have to understand the why of it all. What's the trial about? Who are the patients? Then they master the what, the specific tools and scales they'll be using. And then, and this is so crucial, they get to the how. Tons of hands-on practice and role-playing, all with expert feedback to really sharpen their skills.
And, just to be clear, we are not talking about simple little checklists here. These raters have to master some seriously complex tools. You've got things like the PANSS for psychiatric symptoms, or the MADRS for depression. Each one is designed to capture these incredibly subtle nuances of the human mind, and the raters have to know them cold, inside and out.
And the learning here is super hands-on, very practical. I mean, we're talking mock interviews with actors who are pretending to be patients, live role-playing exercises, and even practicing their scoring by watching videos. They even do these things called inter-rater reliability checks, which is just a fancy way of making sure that two different raters can watch the exact same interview and come up with the exact same score. That's how precise it has to be. And, to make all that hands-on coaching really, really effective, the training sessions are kept incredibly small. We're talking 10 people, max. Sometimes it's even just one-on-one.
And that's what allows for that super personalized, intensive feedback that really turns someone into a true expert.
Okay, so all of this brings us to the biggest question of all. Why does this super meticulous, behind-the-scenes training matter so much? Let's zoom out and connect all these dots back to the big picture.
Honestly, the difference here is like night and day. An inconsistent rater, they're basically just adding noise and randomness to the data. That noise can completely hide whether a drug is actually working or not, and it could cause a potentially life-saving drug to fail its trial. But a well-trained rater, they produce that clean, reliable, high-quality data that gives the entire study its integrity.
So the big takeaway here is that this training has a direct, measurable impact across the board. As you can see, it seriously boosts the reliability of the data, it helps ensure the safety of the patients in the trial, and it makes sure everything is up to snuff with strict regulatory standards. It's a win-win-win. And that right there is what this is all about. This is not just some academic exercise in collecting perfect data. Every single new, effective treatment we get for devastating conditions like Alzheimer's or depression or schizophrenia, it all depends on this foundational work. This is what allows good science to actually become great medicine that helps millions of people.
So, as we look to the future, I want you to remember this. The next time you see a headline about some amazing medical breakthrough, remember that it was built on data. And behind that data are these unseen experts, the clinical raters, whose incredible skill and precision made it all possible. So the critical question isn't just what does the data say, it's who are we trusting to create that data in the first place?